There comes a time in every person's life when you realise it's not about doing what you are told, but doing what you know is right for you. Let us take a journey of learning and discovery with the world's most successful people who are living the life of their dreams, walking through life using their inner wisdom and being of service to others. Forget exams, grades and test scores. What is your purpose? As we let go of what we think should be and learn from our elders to gain knowledge, inspiration and a true sense of who we are. What are your dreams? Does your life have meaning? Are you living a life of significance? Let's talk with today's guest. Hello, my name is Mark Taylor and welcome as we spend some more time together on the Learning on Fire podcast. Today I'm talking to Jeanette Stein. Hi Jeanette, thanks for joining me and let's explore the journey of who you are.
Hi, Mark. So nice to be here today. My name is Jeanette Stein, and I live in Michigan in the United States. And I have my husband along with me, as well as our 6 children. And we also have our first grandson, who's just over 1. So it's been an exciting journey over here. I'm a former math teacher, and now I'm a website owner and business owner, and just loving this journey.
And Jeanette and I met recently in Nashville. We had a fantastic time at a live event over there, and I have to say, if you get the chance to go to a live event, or you get a chance just to spend time with people, especially if they're in a field that you're involved in, it's such a great way to meet friends and also new people that bring into your life. And it's such a fantastic, just I don't know, it's like a life affirming way of spending your time, I think.
Absolutely, it was so great to meet you, Mark. We did have a great time.
So what does your life look like now, and how is it different from when you were growing up?
Oh, such a great question. So when I was growing up, it felt like things were a little slower, a little easier as far as the pace goes. But things were also quite hard for my parents. My parents were married very young. And so therefore, when I was a child, my mom was going to school. She just retired from her nursing job, but she was in school to become a nurse. My dad was in construction. And so in the 80s, when I was growing up, yes, I'm aging myself, in the United States, there was quite the recession in the 80s. And so life was quite difficult for a while for us. My parents made a lot of sacrifices, financial sacrifices, to give my brother and I a better life, as they worked forward from that. But now it's a lot different. My children do have a lot of opportunities. I have a lot of opportunities. Technology allows me to talk to you. I remember one of my friends moved away, and it was such a big deal to talk to her just because it was long distance, and it was expensive back then. And now we talk to people around the world all the time. And so yet life now is just, it's good. It's fast, but it's connected. And I love the opportunities that technology has given not only myself, but my children as well. And so we're trying our best to raise them up on how to use that well. And that's been really exciting.
I think it's a really interesting thing, isn't it? I mean, as a podcast, I spend most of my time on the internet, on the over the airways, as it were, or the old style airways. But it's just the way your children think. I mean, last night we were watching a TV show, and it's got a contestant. It's Strictly Come Dancing, which I think is Dancing with the Stars over there in America. And it was a results show, and one of the couples obviously went out. And they were like, oh no, it's going to be such a shame, I won't get to see you every day. And our youngest just turned around and said, well, you can just FaceTime. And I just thought that was brilliant. It's just that, they just think in that kind of connected, technology is almost the answer to everything. And it was an absolutely perfect solution to what they thought was a problem.
Absolutely. Our kids are just wired that way, aren't they? They see it in a different way. And I want them to see the technology as a solution, not as a problem. But also being cautious that it doesn't become a problem, right? So there's that overcommitment as well that I worry about, but finding that balance is the hard part, I think, right now.
I think it is, and I think a lot of it's attitude, isn't it? It's kind of how you put yourself out there, but also how you see yourself in the overall the overall climate of being online. And I did a great interview with Gooseberry Planet on my Education on Fire podcast right back in season 1, I think it was, or season 2 on the technology season. And it was that kind of, it's being aware, it's being supportive of the great positive things there, but just being savvy, and as you would be in normal life, just to make sure that you keep yourself safe, but you just keep your wits around you, and that you're very open and honest to people if you feel you've got a problem, and that you can go from there. But I think, like I say, the opportunities, if you think of them as opportunities, far outweigh of the dangers, which people perceive to be the biggest threat most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I think the more open you are with the kids about the opportunities and the things they can learn and do, then they're not out looking for trouble as well. They see the positive, and they're excited about it. They really enjoy being found online, sharing things online. And so that's been really great. I've really enjoyed watching them kind of figure that out along the way.
And I also like the fact that they feel like they can find anything out, can't they? I mean, it's not just a Google search or something like that. It can be just more of everything's at your fingertips if you just search and you just want to immerse yourself in things that you like. And it's one of the things I try and get across quite a lot at the moment, is especially as the podcast develops, and obviously now we've got 3 podcasts in the Education on Fire network, but it's that kind of, I sort of say to my kids, it's that when I started this journey, I didn't know anything about podcasting. I didn't have half of the technology know-how that I have now, but it was all there. I found people, I immersed myself in groups and communities of people who'd been there already and done it, and I just gradually learned bit by bit, and there's still a lot to learn and things that I want to progress to, but actually it is there for you as and when you want it. And that's still quite a different kind of outlook, I think, from the more traditional schooling that they're still having, even though the world has moved on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's gone from I want my children more than facts to know problem solving and being able to be proactive and think for themselves, and all those things that we've always wanted. I'm sure my parents wanted for me, and you want for your children, but those things like perseverance and effort and, grit is that common word, but really I want my kid to have that, because they can access a lot of the other information. If they've got those things, they can find the information or figure it out later. So really being able to be problem solvers is what I want my children to be, not necessarily memorize the information like we were taught as children and then be able to put it back on a test.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And what was valuable about your school experience, do you think?
Oh, I had a lot of value. I had a wonderful school experience. I'm sure that's why I wanted to become a teacher. I had a lot of people that were encouraging me and rooting for me and had my back. I had a lot of teachers who really wanted to go above and beyond for all of us, and so that was really fantastic. I had a lot of teachers say to me, I believe in you. I remember saying to one teacher, Mr. Allen, I have a lot of admiration still for him, because I was an insecure teenager when I was graduating high school, as many of us were, going out into the world. And I remember asking him, do I have what it takes to be a math teacher? And he looked at me straight in the eyes, and I knew he believed it. And he said, Jeanette, you have what it takes to be anything you want. And I've carried that with me my whole life. But he wasn't the only teacher to say he believed in me. But that was the one where I was probably the most vulnerable. And so it meant the most, it sunk in the most. And so I'm just so grateful for all of those people. Life wasn't always super easy growing up. We certainly had our bumps and turmoils like all families do. But knowing that I had that safe place to go to every day was really, really powerful.
And I think the teachers you often remember, they are the ones that speak to you, aren't they? It's not about necessarily the way they taught you or those sorts of things. It's just that it's the human connection, and I think that's certainly something that I found valuable from my school experience. It's the community, it's the feeling of belonging in some ways, and it might also be the opposite of that. It might be that you don't feel that that's the case all the time, but then that way you do learn and understand when it feels right and when it doesn't. And I think that's part of just finding your path, especially as you're sort of growing up through those school years.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There were times I didn't feel like I fit in. We moved from one school district to another. And unfortunately, that was before, having a common curriculum was very popular. And these school districts weren't very far apart, but the level that they were at, I moved in the middle of first grade. And I moved from a school where in first grade we were learning our letters to a school where in first grade you were expected to be reading at quite a good level, looking back at where my kids were. And to be put in a position where you're that far behind was really, really hard. And people understood, whether they want to hide it with colors or whatever, the lowest reading group is still the lowest reading group. And as they group you out, that was really hard. But what it taught me that was so valuable is that I had math skills. I could do math. I could understand it. I could see it. My dad being a construction worker, I remember walking into geometry and kids couldn't see it. Like they'd talk about a story problem and I'm like, you can't see that, but I had been around so many construction sites and so many, I'd been exposed to so many things like that I could see it. I just realized I had strengths in other places. And so as I learned that my weaknesses don't define me, my strengths do, then I was okay. Back in first grade, though, that was a little difficult. That was hard.
I think that's the key, isn't it? Is the fact that this podcast is about sort of sharing wisdom and experience and guidance from those of us that have sort of been through it and want to sort of impart it back. And but actually, when you're going through it, there's a youth and a naivety which is an integral part of who you are as you're growing up and as you sort of mature. And I think it's a fine balance between that, understanding about all these things and also at the same time living the life that you're living now in exactly the right time for who you are, with all those insecurities, all the things that you're learning as you're going through. And I think what you said there about being able to see some things, I think that's it. When you sort of recognize your talents, or when you can suddenly realize that the people you've got around you and the experiences they've given you give you something which other people don't have, then once you understand that all those things are a fabric of what you are doing, I think there's some comfort in that, and actually a combination of feeling that comfort and support from people and also hearing the wisdom and guidance from people around you as well. If you can sort of embrace it all and as an open way as you can, I think that's a great starting point for you then to sort of decide how you want to move forward with your life in whatever choices you do have, which is obviously less maybe you might feel when you're younger, but it just gives you I think a sense of your own identity and that you have control of where you want to go, even if that's limited as you start to grow up.
Absolutely. So when I went off to college, when I started looking at careers, it was to be a math teacher or to be an engineer or to be an actuary. Like I knew where my strengths were, and I really was hoping to play off those quite well. And I explored all three of those careers quite extensively, but realized, I love teaching. I love teaching in the classroom. I love teaching outside of the classroom. So that was obviously the direction that I went. But understanding that about myself, having role models that I also wanted to be like, really helped shape where my future went.
And who did you admire when you were young?
I admired a lot of people. My grandmother, from my youngest days, was my biggest cheerleader. My grandmother believed in me more than anybody believed in me. And so for her, I just admired her encouragement and who she was. She was just so honest, and she had a lot of wisdom. And I always wanted to be able to share her encouragement with others. I also had people around me that really inspired me. And so they inspired me to look at careers and college. I was the first one in my family to go to college. And my uncle also went back to school. He went to school the same year that I started. It was always the running joke who would get to graduate first from our family. And I did beat him, for the record. But, watching all these people who are trying to make their lives better in my family and in other areas too, just around my neighborhood, it was just really powerful. But I do have to say, like in my teaching and my professional career, going back to Mr. Allen, he had an ability to really encourage us while pushing us to really work hard. And I admired that balance. Sometimes I felt like as a kid, people would either be encouraging but not expecting a whole lot, or expecting a whole lot without that encouragement. And I felt like he really had the balance down well. So I always wanted to be that way for my students and for my children at home. It really helped me have something to strive for.
And I guess that really is what gives you that impact, isn't it? It's like you said, it's that honesty. It's the fact that someone's got your back. It's the fact they push you in a way which is supportive, that you feel supported even when it can be challenging at times. And I think sometimes it's hard to put that into words, isn't it? But yeah, I think it's something that you feel. It's something that you understand.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Perfect.
What was the best piece of advice you've ever been given, and who was it that gave it to you?
The best piece of advice that I have ever received is just so simple. And it was from a Girl Scout leader. And she said, be yourself, but be yourself loudly. And I've always appreciated that because people, if you've been around me, Mark, we were at the live event together. I'm not the most quiet person, so I can be quite loud. I can really be passionate about what I'm saying to the point, I worry. I used to really worry that it was too much, that I was pushing people away with that. And she was like, no, these are your passions. If I was really passionate about somebody being mistreated, something had happened. And this is where that conversation came from. But in Girl Scouts, we were always there. We were always together. And they always encouraged us to be really supportive of each other. And there was an argument. And I really felt that one of the girls was being mistreated by another one. And I stood up for her. And I was so passionate about it. And the leader's like, you have a heart for this. And you should never shut that down. Like, be yourself loudly. And I thought, gosh, no one tells me to be loud. No one tells me to be loud. But it was such a good thing to be affirmed that way, to be loved and appreciated and known for who I was and being encouraged to be that anyway. I think so many kids feel like they have to really protect what others see of them. And this woman really allowed me just to be me. And so that was just really powerful.
I think that's been a really interesting theme for me as these podcasts have developed over the last few weeks. It's been the fact that people have said, put yourself out there and experience as many things as possible. And I kind of got that from a kind of sort of getting the sense of knowing, I guess, who you are and the sorts of things that you liked. But it just struck me as you were talking there about the fact that what it also does is it gives you contact with lots of different types of people and lots of different personalities. And the more people you come across like that, the more different, not opinions, the more different advice and support you get from people in different ways, because they approach you with their personality and their emotional content, and so actually just being very alive in the world and being exposed to lots of things, it gives you more than just the experience of the activity. It gives you I guess a life and a personal experience, which, like you said, over the course of, say, meeting 100 people, out of that you'll get a sense of the type of people that really understand you and can support you to be you in whichever environment that happens to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. You hear so many things as you move through the world, and not all of them are positive, but if you can really figure out those people who are going to encourage you and lift you up and spend time in that space when you hear those other things, they're not so loud and they're not so important, and it really helps you move forward.
And what advice would you give your younger self now?
Create the life you want. It just felt like for so long I was waiting for somebody else to create it, or if I just followed the rules that this life that I wanted would happen. I would tell anybody younger, and I work very hard to instill in my children, create the life you want. Don't leave it to chance. Go after it. Write it down. When I talk to my sons and daughters, I say, what is your perfect spouse? Who are you looking for? What do you want in that person? Like, don't just the first person who's nice to you. I see that in young people and in my classroom experience. They finally are liked by somebody, and so they jump on that. It's like, but what do you want? What do you want with your life? What do you want your days to look like? How could you create that? And so just teaching my children, and I wish I had figured out sooner, that you can create the life that you want, and you need to go after it and take responsibility 100% every single day and go after it. Don't think like you're going to win the lottery or Oprah's going to give you a car or, whatever that is. No one else is going to come save you. This is up to you.
And just give us a little bit of background in terms of your experience of this, because as you've been talking about being a math teacher and being involved in school, but your life looks slightly different to that now, doesn't it?
Yeah, my life does look a lot different. I started a website to support math teachers, and in that it's brought success. And so I am no longer in the classroom. I determine my schedule. I determine what my days look like, what I can do for my children. I'm the one in charge of making that schedule, setting up my work. I'm the one in charge of whether or not my website is profitable this month or not. I have to make that happen. And it's been a lesson late in life that, yeah, you can make a change. I loved being a teacher. If somebody had ever told me I would quit that job, I thought they were crazy. But my life story is we adopted 4 children and had 2 more in less than 2 years. And I just felt like I couldn't be a good teacher and a good mom at the same time, and something had to change. And I got desperate enough that I made my own future. And I wish I had realized, not that I wanted to leave teaching, but that I had that power within me to create whatever I wanted. And so that's been really powerful. It was a lesson that I had to figure out. So glad I did. And I really want to pass it on to my kids so they can learn it a lot younger than I have.
And I think it's a good thing for us all to remember that actually your world can still be involved in the things you're passionate about, and it can still be involved around your talents and your understanding, but just a few key decisions to take things in hand and do it a different way can make big difference in your life. And I think, like you say, sometimes we get to that point where we feel like we have to do it because external forces are pushing us in that direction. But actually, in reality, we all have that if we've got, like you said before, if we've got a clear understanding and a picture in my mind of actually what it is that we want to produce. And I think if you've got a big enough why to actually make that happen. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think 10, 20 years ago I would have ever quit my teaching job. I loved it so much. It was just what I was born to do. But now, as I moved out of that teaching role so that I could be home with my children, I was loving working with the teachers, but let's be honest, teachers are super busy. So they weren't talking to me a whole lot. So I felt like I was missing out on that teaching. So now I've gotten into coaching. I've kind of filled that hole, and I feel like I'm back in my zone, where I can be an encouragement and help others build their businesses as well. So deciding what makes you happy and where your gifts are and how you're going to use them and being purposeful, it just brings all the joy in the world to your life. And so I would encourage anybody, if you're feeling like something's not quite right, take some time, figure out what you need and what you're good at, what you need to feel fulfilled, and go after it, because it's just amazing.
And there is no time like the present, is there? That's the key. It does remind me a little bit. There was a conversation I had with my sister-in-law a few months ago now, and she was wondering what to do from a career point of view, and everyone normally just sort of works out, looks for a job and sees what job comes out. And she said, "No, what I'm going to do is," she said, "I'm going to sit down and write the job that I want to come to me." And so she sat down and she started it all in reverse. It was that kind of, I want to work these types of hours, I'd like this kind of salary, I'd like this kind of environment, I'd like these are the sorts of people I'd like to be involved in. And then she sort of almost allowed the world to produce that for her. And I thought that was a brilliant way of doing it, because it really made her feel like she had some control over where she was heading, even though she was the one actually sort of actively looking for a different path.
I absolutely love to hear that. I think it's so important to start with the end in mind. If I could quote Covey on that, start with the end in mind. But to start with the end in mind, what do you want? And then start building the stairs to get there. Build those stepping stones. You're probably not going to go straight there. Most of us don't anyway. But it certainly helps to have the image of where you're headed. It gives you a map to how to get there. And it's just beautiful. I love it.
I think that's so important, is that, knowing where you want to head, like I say, having a real great idea and a feeling almost about what it is that you're passionate about and how you want to do it, but then being relaxed and free enough, like you say, for that path to take you probably in the direction you never thought it was going to go. But it's often out of that space that actually the magic happens and the great things happen. You meet the right person, the right opportunity happens, because you're just in somehow I don't know, the world seems to master itself in that particular way. I don't know what that is, but it's certainly been the case in my life. When I've allowed myself to be in that space, that's when amazing things have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that wonderful?
What does your future look like?
Right now, I am really enjoying where I'm at. I have my math site where I'm helping math teachers, and I'm starting to coach. I'm excited for the future. I don't know where this coaching is going to take me, but I do know that it's bringing me a lot of joy, and I'm really, really enjoying it. And so I do think my future will definitely be growing that aspect, but with thinking of business, but then thinking of my family, just more freedom. And I'm really excited to take all these lessons that I've learned and apply them towards a great future. So yeah, I'm really excited to see. Really, I feel like it's wide open, and that's so exciting, right? I don't feel like it's locked in. I did feel like it was locked in before. So it's such a freeing thought, and a freeing way to be.
I love it. It sounds almost magical, that kind of just being in that space, just to think, oh, I've got this around me. I'm grateful for all the ththings that I have, and I've got these new branches of things happening as well. And I'm just going to literally take a breath in and just allow it to almost sweep me up and take me on. And I think that's a great, like I said, a great and exciting place to be. And I wish you every luck with it. It sounds great.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It sounds great to me too.
So what resource has had the biggest impact on your life? And this, it may be a podcast, a book, a video, a film, a song. It could be anything which has just struck you and just made something in your life just think, oh, yes, this is either the most supportive thing or the answer to something I was looking for.
Yeah, I thought a lot about this. The first thing is, I would say for the book, it would have to be the Bible. That's where I find all my strength. And then as far as in my business world, it would have to be the Flip Your Life podcast. When I started listening to Shane and Jocelyn, almost 5 years ago, right? 4? That's crazy. Time is just flying. I was really trying to create a website, and that was profitable, but I was really failing miserable. It was not doing well. But I had all these followers that were following me, and they really taught me how to make it profitable and build not just a website, but a business. And so for my business, it has been just amazing resource for me. That podcast and that relationship with Shane and Jocelyn really helped me to move my business forward very, very quickly and in a very substantial way. So I'm very grateful to both of them.
I think that's fantastic. And to find out information of all of these things, if you go to educationonfire.com, and if you just put Jeanette Stein into the search bar, the show notes for this podcast will just pop up, and we'll have links to all these things, so you can delve in more and experience these things for yourself, and especially the podcast with Shane and Jocelyn, because that's where I met Jeanette, was on their live event in Nashville, and it's these like-minded people, like you say, and I came across them in because they were actually on my podcast, and it's amazing how all these sort of synchronicities sort of happen. And I was talking about having children and getting their views of education, and so I came across them in completely left field, not looking in terms of business and changing my life, but actually just because they were interested in children and education and supporting a podcast which was actually thinking about children and the other way around, and the fact that you're a math teacher and you've got all this experience in schools. It's like these sort of like-minded people just all sort of gravitate together.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
So what's the best way for people to find out more about you if they'd like to delve a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I have 2 websites. I have highschoolmathteachers.com as well as JeanetteStein.com. And you can reach out to me at any time at Jeanette@highschoolmathteachers.com. I'd love to talk to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jeanette, for sharing your wisdom and allowing us to learn from your experiences.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for listening to the Learning on Fire podcast. For more information, please visit educationonfire.com and follow the links from the homepage. This show is sponsored by the National Association for Primary Education. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.